Access 3, Section 4 math, calculators. You should be able to do most of the math, if not all of it, without the calculator, but if you have to do any computation, use the tool. Right? You don't get bonus points for mental math. You do make more mistakes. So write it out, use the tool, and reduce your errors. Don't forget, we need to keep track. We want to keep track of the types of errors you made. Do you remember it close?
Yeah.
Was it a concept? Was it the language? Did you, oops, miscalculated? You forgot to apply one of the strategies, which is an egregious error. Or did you get trapped by your enemy? So keep track of that for each item we discussed. You know, how did you miss it? Why did you miss it? Because we need to key in on those and improve those areas. First item. How about after that one?
Number 14.
Number 14.
Can you do 11?
Well, let's go back to 11.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to point out about these questions that have multiple questions applying to the same data or, right? Questions 10 and 11 refer to the following information. One of the things that you need to remember is whatever equation they give you in the original information, you're probably going to have to keep reusing that equation over and over. And sometimes they'll give you an equation with words, and you need to create the equation with baby language. But they give it to you right here, W equals mg. You're probably going to have to keep using this. And very classic SAT is you're going to have to plug some values in to do the equation once, get an answer, plug that in, and go do it and use it again. And that's exactly what's happening here. That happens constantly. So, an object on Earth has a weight of 100 newtons. We're going to go plug that in for what in our equation? We're going to put that in for W. And on Earth, we need to plug in what for gravitational pull? 9.8. And then we're going to find out the mass. So did you do that? And we get the mass. Now that you have the mass, you're going to go plug that back in. You're going to plug in 170, and you're going to find out the gravitational pull. It's just, right? Does that make sense? I know I'm not writing it down because it's just, you got to get the mass, plug it back in, put in the new newtons, and find the gravitational pull, and that arrives at Saturn. Multiple step. Number 14.
Actually, can we do 13?
13. Sure. So let's write this down. Could you give me the original equation? It's
Yeah, h equals negative 16t squared plus vt plus k.
oh, there's no.
No.
It's just that.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's your original equation, and back to you. So what does the C in a cheat stand for? What does the C in cheat stand for?
Yeah.
Connections, conclusions. And one of the ways that I cheat with connections and conclusions is I look at the answers, especially when the answers are equations. And when I look at the answers, I see they all say V equals, V equals, V equals. Oh, that tells me I should isolate V. So algebra students, let's obey the laws of algebra and we'll get this. How do I isolate V? What's my first step? I have to add this and subtract that. So I'm going to get H minus K. It doesn't matter what the order, order of operations, we're adding, subtracting, that's not a problem. But I'm going to get this on this side, right? When I add 16t squared and I subtract K from both sides and I get VT. And then I'm going to divide by 2. This is basic algebra. If we have trouble with this, we need to practice our algebra. But this is basic, obvious algebra. We're gonna divide by t to both sides. And I'm gonna cheat by checking my answers, and I'm gonna immediately cross out everything that says plus k,
Yeah.
right? So what am I left with?
H minus K plus 16 over all over 2.
Or which two options I need?
B and D.
B and D. Let's compare and contrast B and D at this point. What's the difference? Well, yeah, where did the t squared go? Yeah, I cannot, this has to apply to every single term. But if I've narrowed it down to B and D because of the simple little plus K, I cross out A and C. I look at B and D, I pick D and move on, because we're missing a T up here. Now, that said, right, let me talk to you briefly about something they love to do with, when you arrive at an answer, right? They like to put it into a different format. It'll be the same answer. And I don't know why they decided that they like this, but I've seen it many times. So be sensitive to the fact that I've got my answer, but they're gonna split it into two fractions, for whatever reason. I don't know, they just do this. So I'm gonna end up with h minus k over t plus 16t squared over t, right? Because that applies to everything. And they just like to split it into two separate fractions. And then, in this case, we do simplify by eliminating that, and we just get the 16t.
Okay.
So do keep in mind, if you arrive at an answer that has a fraction, sometimes they like to split that fraction into two separate fractions. Just note to self, I've seen it a lot. Next. Oh, 14. The cost of using a telephone in a hotel meeting room is 20 cents per minute. What kind of language is that?
Multiplication.
That's rate language. That's gonna be, okay. That's 20 cents in 1 minute. But now we have to convert from minutes to hours. How can we attack this? Well, either we see what's happening and it makes sense and we've got it, or we could test and say, well, what if it was an hour? I can start testing numbers and see if they talk for 1 hour, or if they talk for 1 minute, or what would that end up giving you as an answer, and then I could test all of the values. So I could test real numbers, I could cheat it with testing real numbers. But how do I know I can get rid of B?
It's 20 cents per minute, not per hour.
Yes, but remember, what D is given to you as y equals mx plus b, right? Where the b is the y-intercept, or rather, starting amount. Does it cost 60 bucks to start?
No.
No. So there's no starting amount, so I'd have to get rid of b. And then the question is, do I divide or do I multiply? That's the only issue. And then if you get confused, because it's very easy to accidentally invert, you could test a real number to see, what if it was a 30-minute call, how much would that cost? See which one gives you the right value. What if it was a 10-minute, pick something simple, 10 minutes. Or I probably would pick 60 minutes, because that would be 1 hour. See, what would that cost be? And then see which equation gives you the same answer. Okay? Next. 19. All right. Let's talk about dimensional analysis, or as I always called it, use your units. I want to show you this strategy. It's extremely helpful in chemistry and physics. It's often called dimensional analysis, but more broadly, use your units. Your units tell you what math to do. Now, they love to give you these language inversions. it might not be happening here, I'm just warning you in advance. Don't forget, your enemy loves to tell you, oh, the car's traveling at 20 miles per hour. They just coded your brain with 20 in the numerator and 1 hour in the denominator. The math you probably are gonna have to do is gonna be 1 hour in the numerator and 20 in the denominator, right? Just, you have to be careful, the units will save you. So what I do is I start out with, what does the question ask for? What does the question want? What do they wanna know?
How many acres could 48 ounces of graphene cover?
So the question is, how many acres? I need to solve for acres, right? And I just start using units to show myself what has to happen here. So what information in the text above did they give me that uses acres in any way?
A football field and one in the building.
Aha, so I know acres must go in my numerator. Why? Because that's what I want for an answer. So I need, so in 1 acre, how many, what's that?
One football
Is 1 1/3 acres. So there's 1 1/3, or I'll call it 4/3 acres, and one, how'd you get there? And 1 football field. Football field. I don't want acres per football field, so I have to get rid of football field. So I'm gonna put football field up here, so that I can cancel that. What information do they give me, additional information using football fields?
1 ounce of graphene covers 7 football fields.
7 football fields, 1 ounce of graphene. That is probably where some of the mistake might happen. Because they said 1 ounce graphene covers 7 football fields, but we need it this way. What else? I don't want acres per ounce. I need to get rid of ounce. So I'm gonna put ounces of graphene up here. What do they give me that involves ounces of graphene? 48 ounces of graphene. What about the 48 ounces of graphene?
Covers how many acres?
Oh, so it's just over 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can cross those out, and that's my math. Use the calculator, crunch numbers, and you're done. Use your units. Your units tell you what to do. Next. What else? Did everybody get, just out of curiosity, did everybody get 15 okay, or did anyone?
No, I was gonna ask about that. Yeah.
Okay, because there's a very specific coaching point on this language. And that is, whenever there's data like surveys, experiments, and I've got this data that I need to interpret, you must use iffy language in your conclusions. You may not make definitive statements. You must say things like possible, approximate, likely, potentially, margin of error. You can't be absolute definitive with this. It's very important, and it's a very easy way to solve them. So, what can I say about this experiment? Well, treatment X is likely, I like likely, okay. B, treatment X improves eyesight better than all others. No, that's a very strong definitive statement, can't make that. You cannot draw that conclusion. C, treatment X will improve? No. It's possible, likely, potentially. And D, it will cause? No. All options use definitive language except A, which is our iffy language. So your strategy point is, any conclusions about data like that must use iffy language. Next.
Okay.
21 and 22. All right, number 21. All right, so note to self, one of their faves to include one way or another is seeing if students will catch the language as to whether this will be a linear relationship or a curved line exponential relationship. So let's watch our language to see, what are they asking for, and which one is going to deliver. Is it linear, constant, same rate of increase, or does the rate of increase increase? So let's look at, the question asks, they want exponential growth. They want exponential growth. So let's look at A. Each successive year, 2% of the initial amount is added to the value of the account. How much was the initial investment or initial deposit? Well, if you don't know, I don't know. $100, yes, exactly. I know that it was $100. Why? Because it makes my life easy. So after, so what's 2% of 100? And if I look at the wording, it says every year I do 2% of 100. So every year I'm adding 2. That's constant, that's linear. Cross it out. Let's go on to B. Each successive year, 1.5 of the initial savings and 100 is added. Okay, what's 1.5% of 100? So we're adding 1.5 and 100. So we're adding 101.5, 101.50 every year. Isn't that the same amount? That's the same amount every year. That's constant, that's linear. Cross it out. Each successive year, 1% of the current value is that. Okay, what's 1% of 100? 1. Now, next year, the current is 101. What's 1% of 101? $1.01. But that's a little more. And each year, it'll be a little more. So that's my answer. Let's go disprove D first before we move on. Each successive year, we just add 100. Oh, that's the definition of constant, right? So, constant versus, and watch this too, I've seen them do this, just note to self, please write this down. Beware when they use the word constant. I've seen them intentionally using the word constant to trap you. So when I say watch your language cues, constant would imply linear, right? Yeah, unless they try something like it's a constant rate of 2% per year. I've seen that before. They intentionally use the word constant and 2% each year. Well, if I'm constantly doing 2%, I'm still getting exponential, right? So beware, make sure if you see the word constant that it actually is a same rate of increase. I've also seen them do constant with the glass that's not a constant shape. And so the rate of fill changes. Even though I'm pouring in the water constantly, the same rate, because the shape isn't the same, the rate of fill is not the same. So just note to self, constant should imply linear, but be careful. I've seen them use that word intentionally to try to trap you. 22. Let me see. Maggie, would you do me a favor? Would you read 22 for me?
The sum of three numbers is 855. One of the numbers, x, is 50% more than the sum of the other two numbers. What is the value of x?
Which two values can you immediately go cross out? Based on what Maggie just read.
And 214.
The two small ones.
Yeah.
Because x is clearly 50% more than the other two combined. X has to be much more than half of 855, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to go cross out the two little ones, because x is clearly, from the language, one of the bigger values. Now, we can cheat by testing one of these sets of numbers and see which is true. Or, what I would like is, I would like to see can you create two equations from this? baby language, what's the two equations we should create from this?
X plus Y.
Three numbers, x plus y plus z, the sum is 855, right? Alright, so that should be easy peasy. The next one, we have to be careful, but we should do it. Let me ask, well, go ahead, Wesley, would you please read for me the second part where x is?
X is 50.
Wait, I'm a baby, so baby language. X
50%.
is
More.
50% more.
Yeah.
How do I do 15%? How do I do 50% more? Guys, not 50% of, 50% more. That's how we do 50% more. 1.5 shows, and note to self, 1.5 is 50% more, so that would be a good takeaway. 50% more than what?
The sum of the
The sum of the other two. So those are our two equations that we should come up with, and I think 50% more, I think that's an important takeaway for you probably. Yeah. So what can I do? I could test 570 or 513, what is it? Now, given this is in the 20s, and I'm a savvy test taker, and I know my enemy, I'll test 513, because it's not a nice even whole divisible by 10. I'm thinking they might have gone that route. But I know it's one of the big ones, so I'm gonna test this. If x is 513, what does y plus z have to equal? Subtract 513 from both sides, right? Oh gosh. Yeah, okay. Minus 513. What would x, if I subtracted this from both sides? 342. 342. I'm going to substitute that in here, and I'm going to check, does 513, use your calculator, equal 1.5 times 342? Is that true?
Yeah.
Next question. So a little bit of baby language strategy, a little bit of cheat with the values. I could have done it algebraically as well. If any algebra teachers look in, they're like, oh, show them the algebra. If you didn't see the algebra, I can't help you see it on test day. I need to help you find a way around it. And you still had to do a little bit of it. What else? 23, I suppose. Okay. What did we talk about? Did we talk about this before? I think we used a 3, 4, 5 triangle as an example. In this triangle, what must be true about x plus y? In this triangle, what must be true about x plus y? They have to equal. So what must be true if they add up to 90? The sine of x was what? In this case, 4 over 5, and it will equal the cosine by definition, right? And we said that this is a superfave, and this will show up on pretty much every test. But if they give you this information, you must conclude this is true. If they give you this information, you must conclude this is true. So by telling you that the sine of one equals the cosine of the other, that should trigger you to go, oh, this is true, therefore I must say a plus b equals 90. And if you don't do that, you'll have trouble solving this. So everybody immediately write a plus b equals 90, and then go substitute in the values for a and b and solve.
Is that only with right triangles?
Are these angles in right triangles?
We don't know.
Answer is it don't matter as long as the two angles add up to 90. Are they complementary? It happens naturally in right triangles.
Okay,
But the answer to your question is no, it does not have to be in right triangles.
okay.
It'll naturally occur in right triangles. But here we have angles that are,
Okay,
not even part of a triangle.
we can just assume that because it's at that sign of A.
Exactly. That info, saying that the sine of one equals the cosine of the other, is our cue to then say, well, then they must add up to 90. That is the connection and conclusion you must make to solve this one. Next.
Do we do 24 too?
Yeah.
You're gonna be irritated though.
With 3, 4?
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. So every student gets 3 millimeters, right? How many millimeters do they have left over?
5.
Okay. How many more do they need? No, it tells you right there. How many more or additional? They need an additional 21. What's 5 additional 21?
Seriously?
Next question.
Wait, what? I thought you had.
What does additional mean?
Yeah, I missed.
What is, we have 5, we have 5 left over. How many additional do we need? What's 5 plus 21? Think real hard, use the calculator. 26.
Wow.
We're done. Baby language. Now, to be fair, here's the one caveat on this. They currently have 3 millimeters each. And we want them to have how many millimeters each?
4.
Okay, so because we're increasing by 1, that's why it's only 5 plus 21. Then each will get 1 more. What if we said we wanted to give them 5 each? Then we'd have to take that 26 and divide by 2, because we needed to give 2 each. And then we'd say there were 13 students. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The only reason this simple language works is because we're only giving each student 1 more milliliter. But that's all that's happening, guys. It's just the language. It's 5 and add 21. Watch your language. Next. Yeah, 25, if you ended up with C, it's you forgot the cone on the bottom. Next. I heard 26 softly. What are the 3 points that they give you? Yes, they said the word origin. So there's 1 point. What else? 2K and K 32. In your watch your language sheets, what is implied when you have 3 points on the same line? Any 2 points will create the same swing. And this is a nice, convenient, easy point to use. And we know both the x and y values. Do you guys know how to find slope? Change in y over change in x. Let's just do it. Let's do these two. The change in y over the change in x. Right? Let's do these two. The change in y over the change in x. And what do we know about these two slopes? They are equal. Cross multiply, yes? And we get 64 equals k squared, square root. What does the square root of k equal? Sorry? Thank you. The plus or minus won't won't affect us here, but be in the habit, plus or minus 8 is therefore the answer.
And the
27. Okay, so at least I see an initial drawing. I don't see the second rectangle. I don't see a drawing. What do you get?
That was my highlight, I was lost.
All right, so next time, don't highlight the correct answer because we want to arrive at that, all right? I don't see any drawing.
My guide's all over.
Okay. I would definitely use hieroglyphics and I would test real numbers. So, let me ask, Stella, would you do me a favor, would you read the question?
Yeah. A rectangle is altered by increasing its length.
Okay, let me slow down just one second. We got a rectangle. There's my rectangle. It's altered by what?
10%.
Increasing the length by 10%, so that it's longer,
And decreasing its width by p%.
and so it's narrower.
Mhm.
If you don't start with those two rectangles, you suck at cheating. Just draw it out for yourself. Okay, what's next though?
If these alterations decrease the area of the rectangle by 12%, what is
So
the value?
his area, as I heard it, his area is going to decrease by 12%. Okay,
What is the value of p?
so P, so this is gonna decrease by P%. Okay. If only I had some numbers to work with. Does nobody wanna help me? What's the original length? Yeah, you could. It doesn't matter what values you choose, if you follow the process, it will work. But I'm lazy, so I'm gonna call it 100, because I'm dealing with percent. And so I don't even need my calculator to do a 10% increase of that. This is 110, right? Okay. What do you want the width to be? Here's where I would go with 10. I want to use 100 again, because squares are special to rectangles. But I'm concerned that using the same value might screw things up a little bit, so I'll call it 10. All right, so we're talking about area. What's his area? 10 times 100, use the calculator, 1,000. I'm gonna decrease that by 12%, which means it's 88% of, what's 88% of 1,000? Use the calculator. Therefore, I know what my width is. What times 110 gives me 880? I went from 10 to 8, what's the percent decrease? 2 out of 10 is 20%. This is too easy. So what did I just do that you go, ah, that's what I should have done? What did I do that you say that's what I should have
Oh,
done? Draw it,
With values.
use real numbers, and lazy values. Math is always easy. And you get the calculator anyway.
I feel like all the easy questions are on the calculator section. It's like, check your width.
They're all, I'd say they're all easy, but again, it's the language and the cheating around when you don't know what they're talking about. All right, I'm gonna do one more question with you. I'm gonna do 28 with you, and then we're getting really close to the end of the class. I'm gonna hold off on the rest. It will save for discussion in the next class. But then your homework will be a little bit shorter, so we have time to discuss it all. Look at number 28. This is 100% pure language. What is the information that they give you? They tell you that the population decreases by how much?
10%.
You see this 10% over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want it. We want to know how many people are left. So what percent is left? So we have to cross out A and B, right? It's got to be C or D. Does it make sense? It's the old switcheroo. You see this decrease? Yeah, we want how many are left. Now, from the language, how often does this decrease occur?
Every 20 years.
What does every mean? The next question. Every 20, divided by 20. Okay, real quickly, now, I've got one more thing to do. First of all, we got a Dunkin's gift card that it was gonna have to wait till next time because I didn't catch any kind comments on any of the vocab video. And just by leaving a comment in future, or subscribing, whatever, I'm just going to draw randomly someone for a Dunkin's $10 gift card, okay? However, this gift card is going to be for whoever wins the Dunkin's Math Challenge today. I'm going to ask you to turn to a page in just a moment and to try to solve a particular question by cheating it. You could solve it algebraically, but I want you to cheat. You're still going to have to do some algebra. You're still going to have to crunch some numbers. But what is my favorite number to cheat with? Well, if it's percentage, it's 100. Zero's my favorite, but if I can't use it, 1. All right, so I'm going to warn you in advance that you can't cheat with 0 because then the quantity we're trying to cheat for goes away. You can't do, we can't solve. So we probably should cheat with. As soon as you have the answer, let me know. Page 1118, number 13. Page 1118, number 13. Let's see who gets the answer first.
Oh, I already have it.
What?
Yeah.
I already have it.
You cheated it already. I forgot about that. Doggone it.
I know you were gonna say that too, because you said that 0 makes it go away, and you did that.
Yes,
I
you
remember
were
that.
like, all right, that's fine, we'll cheat the different way. I wanna see one other thing very quickly. Okay, fine, we'll cheat a different way. Are you ready? Now maybe 0 could work. Just saying. Page 993, number 14. 993, number 14.
Wait, what number?
14. 993, 14.
Can I just guess? I'm so bad at math. I can't do it.
You have to be able to prove it to me.
I just see,
How do you know?
because if negative, if f of x is, negative f of x is y, f of x is 2 of x plus 1, you substitute the exponent for 0, and anything to the 0 is 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and therefore a negative y is negative 2.
That's a proper cheat.
Wait, what's the answer?
That's proper cheat. The answer is C. And I just need to confirm that she did cheat it correctly and not a random guess. So good. She plugged in 0 for x. Anything to the 0 is 1. You end up with a result of 2, but then the question says, make it negative. So when I plug in a 0, I should get a negative 2, and only C does that. Awesome. Okay, so your homework is going to be, well, no, we get 2 weeks off.
That was fast.
That's right, I forgot. Because next Saturday will be the first Saturday of February break, right? So we took off both Saturdays of February break because I know some families travel on one, some travel on the other. So actually your homework is going to be all of practice test 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, all of practice test 5.
Where is that?
So that starts on page 952. Everybody, page 952. All of practice 5. Remember, this $10 Dunkins will be up for grabs as well as another one. So I'll give away 2 for social media connections. And yeah, cool. Anyone have a clear and important takeaway? We can end for now.
Oh, I don't know.